Okay, given today is Anzac Day in Australia, I wanted to share this fun fact that I know, which is kind of horse related. Basically, Anzac Day in Australia is the Australian and New Zealand Army Corps, and it's a day that we remember those who went to war and fought for our rights in this country. And I want to share this fun fact that, well, not really a fun fact, this fact about horses in the war. So 136,000 horses went to war for Australia and New Zealand, and only one came home. Yeah, I just wanted to share that fact. Well, we're up to episode 2, amazingly. We're already doing better than I thought. Let's not hesitate anymore and jump straight into it.
Oh no. Look at that. What am I going to do with them?
I remember watching this episode for the first time and being a bit confused. Okay. I always thought, did she send them out on like a free ride and then ask them to come back? Or did she send them to the end of the paddock and say, walk back and I'll judge you? I always wondered what was going on. Like, maybe someone can help me with that because I'm just confused.
Don't slouch, Murray. This isn't a cattle ride.
You shouldn't be slouching anyway. When it comes to horse riding, you should be holding your posture nice and straight because that's going to help with balance. And if anything is to happen, your balance is what's going to help you stay on your horse. You shouldn't be slouching anyway. So saying don't slouch, Murray, isn't a cattle ride. It should be you just don't slouch.
And don't ride so close to the boys, Stevie. You'll just pick up their bad habits.
Because that's how people pick up bad habits, by riding next to them. Although I will pick up a point. When I got my dog Minty, my sister's dog, who's a boy, would come over and they would play, and Minty would watch my sister's dog pee, and now my female dog pees like a boy. So I guess in some animals they do pick up bad habits, because now my female dog pees like a boy and it annoys me. Okay, I can tell this is like the end of a lesson. Okay, this is like the last leg of their lesson. I was always told to cool down your horse at the end of a lesson, and I can tell that they were walking, and that is wonderful. But now that they are cantering, I think it's just going to up the horse's heart rate, and you're going to need to cool them down again. Walking should be the last thing you do at the end of a lesson, and should last for about 10 to 15 minutes to cool down your horse.
Thanks, Uncle Roy. You can back up and go.
Okay, this we learn very soon that this is Simon, and Simon is coming for his first riding lesson. And the reason I want to point that out as a little bit of a spoiler alert is on his first riding lesson, the adult needs to be there. Because Simon is underage, they're there to kind of like sign paperwork. We saw that with Lisa on her first lesson. Her mother had to come drop her off, and there would have been paperwork for her to sign for her first lesson and all that sort of thing. So the fact that Simon is rushing his uncle off, he wouldn't have been allowed to ride a horse anyway that day. He wouldn't have been allowed to just back up and go. He would have had to legally be there to sign some paperwork.
They're with real skin and bone, equine animals.
Make sure you wear your helmet.
Stop.
It's kind of the law for underage riders. They don't really let you on a horse without a riding helmet, but could be different in other countries.
He's going away? Where to?
I don't know.
I have tried to have communications like this on a horse, and because of like everything that's happened, like you can't really hear what's happening behind you because it's not easy. So the fact that they're having a full-blown conversation, they're talking at normal tone, they're not yelling or strumbling on any words, you know.
You're not riding in pairs, Lisa. Single file. Carol, communicate with your horse.
What does she communicate with? Like, I don't understand what's wrong with how Carol was riding her horse. It looked fine to me. What does she need to communicate with? It's not like her horse was spinning out of control, doing pirouettes.
Carol, come back this instant.
Yeah, they just always have people in like a riding class with a wheelbarrow just happen to be walking backwards. You don't walk backwards with a wheelbarrow, you walk forwards. That's why it's a wheelbarrow. That's why there's only one wheel and the 2 handles. You walk forward, you don't walk backwards. And he wouldn't be allowed in there. What his job would be, if this is the case, I'm just guessing, his job would be to pick up the manure as riding went on. So they could continue riding without any dramas. And at the end of the lesson, he would take it to a manure pile and place it in there, but he wouldn't be doing it in the middle of a lesson when more manure might happen. And looking at his wheelbarrow, it's not that full, so he shouldn't be emptying it anyway. But that is just my observation if he is a manure boy. Because that's usually what they would do during riding classes. They'd have someone on standby to clean up the manure so they could just continue on with their riding. it's very rare, but what are the chances that every horse that has walked past has been something that you wouldn't consider to be a gentle horse? They're all acting up in some way or another, and it's every horse that he's viewing is happening to be that way.
Wait up! Carol, wait up! Hey, Carol! Carol!
How did Veronica beat them? Like, they was very far in front before Veronica turned around and got to them. How did Veronica beat them to this spot?
Show jumping, dressage.
You've had experience.
I don't want a big note, but riding is my passion.
I'm sure it would have had in Simon's file that when his Uncle Roy signed him up to lessons, they would have had a little questionnaire. And his Uncle Roy would have said he's never ridden a horse before. It wouldn't have been their first time meeting. This wouldn't have been the first interaction. It could have been with Max, and he could have had his interview with Mrs. Reg. You would have had to like have a little interview just so they know what experiences you've had. And his Uncle Roy would have said he's had zilch.
Kind of big, isn't he?
Ah, he's a baby, aren't you, Savage?
That wasn't his question. He said he's kind of big. Just because a horse is a baby doesn't mean they can't be big. His question was he's a bit big, not what his age is. A lot of people like me, I'm used to like a cob size horse. I'm quite happy on a cob. Thoroughbreds, because I'm quite short, I think that's a long way to the ground. And usually with falling off horses, that's where the saying comes from. It's usually inevitable. You're going to fall off a horse. And I'd rather fall off on a Shetland pony or a cob than I would on a thoroughbred. So he was asking, he's kind of big, not what his age is. You're kind of implying that he's going to get bigger if you're saying he's only a baby. If that's your answer to his question, you're implying that he will be bigger simply because he's only a baby. And you can tell a horse's age through their teeth. That's how you age. That's how people tell a horse's age. That horse ain't a baby if I'm looking at his teeth. Okay? We've answered a few questions here. Jack's a liar. That horse ain't a baby.
Maybe we should check it out.
Later, mate, come on. I'll give you a leg up.
You're gonna let him ride in that? He's wearing sneakers for starters. He doesn't have a helmet on. He doesn't look like that's appropriate riding clothes to begin with. Shouldn't he have changed before you suggest he rides a horse? Proper clothing is very important when riding a horse. Again, like I just said, you have to picture horse riding like you're about to fall off. And if you got to think, if you fall off a horse, are you going to break any bones? Are you going to be seriously injured? Are you going to be bruised? You have to think of that with the outfits that you're wearing. If you do want to go riding a horse, and I'm sure a lot of people do, before you hop on a horse, you have to think, is this outfit going to protect me if I am to run into a bush, if I'm to fall off my horse, if I'm to get trampled? How well will my clothing protect me? But don't wear those type of shoes because things like laces, they can get stuck in the stirrups. And if you are to fall off, you could be dragged with your horse.
Up 3 flights of stairs. I don't know anyone in the whole block, and they don't allow animals, especially horses.
I kind of figured, seeming it's kind of the law to keep horses on like a certain amount of acres. Like you can't just have a horse in your backyard, you can't just have a horse in a building flat. Because by law you have to give them the space, they need to run around. So kind of no shit they don't accept horses. Sometimes cats and dogs you kind of think why, but horses I can understand why he's not coming into a building in the city.
You're not going anywhere. You can stay with me. Yeah, if you want. Or our house is bigger.
I don't get it, it was Lisa's idea, let her have her moment. Like, Lisa came up with the idea. Just support it, don't outshine her. It was Lisa's idea.
Yeah, but there's more of you. I'll ask my folks when they get back. I'll ask my mom tonight.
But even still, it's not a guaranteed answer. Just because Lisa came out with a bright idea that she could share her house with Carol doesn't mean it's a definite yes from her parents. The fact that Veronica is attempting to saddle so subtle should be a sign that something's up.
I know you're upset, Stevie. I talked to Lisa. She says her mum will let Carol stay with them.
I think Stevie's reaction should say something like, you spoke to Lisa. You took time out of your day to go talk to Lisa. That should be a sign that something was up. That should be red alarm bells.
Stevie and Lisa would never lose you. Although, if you did stay, one of them would be really hurt.
How is that? Carol would be staying, they'd be glad. They'd rather have her here than her not being here.
The new boy, the one I'm putting through his paces.
Kind of get the feeling he's keeping out of the way.
No kidding. Can't hide a thing from you now, can we, Jack?
Does she think Jack's hiding the kid on purpose? Like, surely Jack could just explain himself. You know, he said he was getting changed, he never came back. I've been busy with other things, I don't have time to look for him. Go bother somebody else.
Simon?
You thought that sounded like Simon. Like, I know you never met him before, but you honestly heard that sound and thought, that must be Simon. Seriously?
It'll be easy. We'll put another bed against the wall and your desk under this window. There's not enough room.
I'm with Lisa. I'm looking at that room right now and there isn't enough room. Unless they wanted to share the bed and a desk, there isn't enough room for 2 people. I'm sorry, but I agree with Lisa here.
Sure there is. Can you really stay here?
I don't know, like, why they're acting this is like the first time they've been to each other's houses. They've been to each other's houses a million times. Surely they knew how small Stevie's house was due to the fact that they've been there before. They're acting like this is the first time they've been to Stevie's house.
She's gonna call you anyway. So just tell her he's not for sale. Who's not for sale? Not Starlight. Mum wants a new pony for Melanie.
Then maybe Lisa's mum should have the common sense to realise you can't just buy a horse that isn't for sale. And Carol should be standing up and being like, well, tell your mum to F off because my horse ain't for sale, so I ain't selling him. Lisa's mum shouldn't have come to the conclusion that Carol just has to get rid of her horse now. Like, that's not how this works. If Carol had to go away and leave Starlight, she could donate him to Pine Hollow as a school horse. She doesn't have to sell him to Lisa's mum, and she shouldn't be over exaggerating like this, like she has no other choice, because she does. It's her horse and she doesn't have the right just to assume that she can buy Carol's horse.
But you know, you hardly ever see your parents.
Lisa!
It's cool, Carol. I'm not insecure. Not like some people. Stevie! At least I'm not shouting.
I love they just had to put a clarinet in there to show that Lisa still plays clarinet, because for the rest of the series we never see another clarinet again, and we just had to bring it up that Lisa still plays clarinet.
What I don't understand is why he refuses
Oh,
to...
look at that. Real live video streaming.
Well done, Simon.
He never turned...
So you had all these cameras in your stable, but you never had them hooked up to anything? Or did Simon install these cameras and connect them to your computer? I'm going to assume Max had these cameras for security purposes, but by the looks of things he didn't have them like backed up to anything, so they were just recording, but there's no way to revisit them by the sounds of things. I could be wrong.
Simon! Simon! Simon!
I feel like someone's going to call his Uncle Roy to say you need to pay a cancellation fee because Simon didn't show up to his writing lesson, and there might be a bit of a communication happening tonight at dinner because someone will be informed that Simon didn't show up for his lesson.
That was our deal, Simon. Writing or soccer?
I can't even see through that windscreen. What makes you assume that is Simon? I hate to break it to you, but if I was at a cafe sitting at a table and someone stared at me like that, I'd be saying, "You alright? You okay?" Like, Veronica, you don't own that table. People shouldn't have to move for you. Like, the fact that that girl did, I don't know why, because she shouldn't have to move. It's not your table. You don't pay for it. You don't own it. You don't have the right to eyeball people and tell them to F off. So Carol is out of tune and out of key and out of everything because she doesn't have her 2 friends there. If I was singing a song that I'd sung 1,000 times, I would still know the tune and the way to go.
This is me. I should be.
So The JV people are well aware there are 3 singers, and they have 3 microphones. We saw that at the end of the last episode. We see it in future episodes that they have more than 2 microphones. So you're trying to tell me that the people at JV's, knowing 3 people were singing tonight, only put out 2 microphones, knowing that in the past when they sang these girls, they had 3 microphones. We see at the end of the next episode that there are 3 microphones. Why have they only put out 2? Is it so they can purposely have their fight?
No matter which one I choose, I'm really gonna hurt the other. So it's probably best that I go.
I mean, look, at least her father was nice about it and was actually giving her the opportunity to stay with one of her friends. Like, that was a nice thing to do. Because he walked out the door at the beginning of the episode and said, you're staying with your Aunt Penny. It's not negotiable. So the fact that he was giving her the opportunity to stay with one of her friends was actually quite nice, because a lot of people wouldn't even get that chance.
I guess I better call you Aunt Penny. Arrange a plane ticket.
I thought you had already done that. You said at the beginning of the episode it wasn't negotiable. It wasn't up for discussion. That kind of brings into people's minds that that was already arranged. You already arranged the plane ticket. You'd already organised her to have the spare room set up. This has only just happened within like a day. Literally. So, yeah. One thing I never understood was this was the beginning of a new season. Like, they went through a big hype about like the whole season 3. To me, it was a bit of a ballsy move to make Carol potentially leaving in the 2nd episode. Like, surely make this later on. Make it the last episode. Because we all know she's basically going to stay, because you're not going to end the series after 2 episodes. You know what I'm saying? Like, we kind of know what's going to happen based on the fact that this is episode 2 out of 26. Like, at least put it in towards the end of the series to make it a bit more suspenseful, because we all know what's going to happen now.
You're going away for a while.
She's going away for a while, but technically she's going away indefinitely. Her father told her that.
I'm going to ask Mrs. Wright to look after you.
Well, Lisa's mum may call you a little bit later, because she just assumes because you're not there the horse is for sale, so you may get a call a little bit later. Another episode done and dusted. If you did like this video, please give it a big thumbs up, and also please do subscribe for more, and I will see you next time in the next episode. Bye guys.